Vinod, am I audible? Great. Vinod, can you send me a hi and can you just tell me if I'm audible or not? Okay, great, superb. Okay, so very good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to see a lot of known and unknown set of audience right now, as I can see a lot of people joining in and showing me waving hands. So, hi back to everyone. And today I am going to address on this platform of Eartheque about a lot of subjects. Quite a few people know me already, and for those who would not know, I am Architect Angad Kasliwal. I'm principal architect of Studio23. It's my studio is based out of Indore, Madhya Pradesh. We are urban designers, architects, and interior architects with our expansive working from Delhi till a lot of major states and cities of India. So to begin with, I would like to thank Silpa Darshan of Eartheque for inviting me on this online platform and talking about the issues that I'm going to address about today with respect to the students of architecture, with respect to the professionals, with respect to the marketing personals, and a lot of people who are associated to our industry about what are the ways forward basically we can go about after this pandemic. This is a special call of an event wherein we have to think about things and be very judgmental about it. We have to be very thoughtful about it. And the opinions that I'm going to give in my what I'm going to share today are basically a few of the things that all of us should be pondering about. It is not only it is not only a matter of anybody who's an architect listening to this right now. It could be a layman, it could be any person who exists on this planet. And the information that I'm going to share you could be of possibly good help to all of you. So to begin with, I'm going to address my journey as a student of architecture till the professional awards and honors that I have received throughout my curriculum, and post that as a professional practicing under my own head of Studio23. I will be talking about entrepreneurship and architecture. Now, entrepreneurship and architecture is very, very important thing to talk about. For one simple reasons that in most of the architecture institutes, or even once you are an architect, even if that is not an influence of our architecture or college or an interior design college, a lot of people fail to understand that how exactly are we supposed to start way forward for our working. So that is one important thing that we'll be talking about today. Then we'll be talking about COVID-19 pandemic and urban designers and architects as corona warriors post the pandemic, obviously, and how exactly we, as a part of making of the world, we are the important visionary in the entire framework of the society who could be possibly helping out people and showing a way forward of how the life could be, because end of the day we are the lifestyle designers and we need to be responding back to whatever is happening, whatever the requirements of the people are. We will also talk about immediate possible effect on architectural practices, the building typology, and what are possibilities that we can look into. Basically, there is no one bottom line. Everything is just an assumption for now out of experiences of various peoples, out of experiences of all of us in the fraternity together that we talk about. And the most important controversial Supreme Court ruling regarding the title and service protection of the architects. And if time permits further to that, we are going to talk about the question answer session, if the time permits, that is. Otherwise you can just drop in the question and then I will on the comment, and I will just reply back after in 10 minutes, whatever best I can. To begin with, because an introduction is equally important as I am talking to you, for you to know me, I would talk about my awards and honors to begin with, and I would get it in chronological sequence of how exactly I started, and possibly that could be one of the inspirations which the organizers are looking at, that my delivering a online session could be useful to the students as well to the professionals. So possibly that timeline could be of a lot of help to a lot of people around, hopefully. So when I was a student of architecture, so I basically graduated from University of Pune Bharati Vidyapeeth, and I've had an amazing academic life, and that academic life was basically a result of my finding in my initial days when I was pursuing my school that what exactly is my calling all about. And after understanding my calling, I joined architecture. I've lived in 7 cities, as most of the brief what you must have read around says. After my schooling, I was a very aspiring architect, and I wanted to join SEP like most of us would want to as a part of our pursuing architecture course. And I was in Ahmedabad for a long time. I was studying with SEP professors and trying to understand a lot of concepts of architecture, design, artwork for getting into architecture field. And then for some fortunate and unfortunate reasons, I could not get through, and then I landed up at Bharatiya Vidyapeeth in Pune, and which I am thankful to God for sending me to one of the best institutes with a lot of best set of faculty around me. What is more important, if I tell you, for people who are aspiring right now to join any of the architecture colleges is to become an architect, you need to pass through an architect. When I say you need to pass through an architect, it is the experiences of people that you listen to is going to make you a good architect. So your professors and people who are teaching you have got more inputs than possibly whatever textbooks you read, because we are not a textbook oriented course to begin with. And hence a good institute and a good set of professors really matter into a college. After that, I started after my graduation from Pune. I did my internship from Bangalore, and then I was there for a long time. Under a lot of amazing architects who got their practices in India as well abroad, and there's a lot of learning to happen from the master architects. And after my Bangalore in internship, I went to Goa. There I was doing my first job. After that, I had a calling for certain reasons that I'm going to share you, that I should be pursuing urban design in my masters, and that is how I landed up in University of Manchester, where I studied my urban designing. Like any other good student and a professional in the University of Manchester, a lot of people did not want me to come back from there, rather start working over there. But then I always wanted to start as an entrepreneur and start my own work. And for a lot of reasons, that Indian architecture to certain still parts do not really have an identity. It's always good to share your knowledge base with people who are whom you can possibly extend out yourself to, and create a base for your own country and for your own people. That always has got a calling, which is my addressal obviously to a lot of people who are still outside the country and trying to figure out if they would want to come back to India or not. So it is always a good idea on that note. And after that I came back to India. It becomes a cultural shock all of a sudden when you stay there for a long time, when you study over there. The system is very refined, but then any which ways there is a certain calling, there is a certain motivation that will always keep you going, and you should be listening to it instead of ignoring it. It's better to be a part of it and try to do something about it than just being mum. And hence I came back to India. I thought that I should be starting with one of my I started working in Delhi to begin with as a part of my career, and then I eventually realized that tier 2 cities are the best options for the architecture practices to begin with, and that is how Indore becomes my base. These are the basic understandings of my timeline, and I'm going to elaborate more about how on every step of my life architecture and my life at large started inspiring me more to along with a lot of people started inspiring me more to get in the way of what and where I stand and what I'm trying to do, more importantly, as the journey continues. I will talk about my awards and honors and first and then. So when I was in my 4th year, I was awarded with Award for Excellence in Architectural Thesis 2009 by Council of Architecture. This must be available into a lot of your books in your libraries for people in Chennai, also for in Pan India. So that is organized by NIASA, and we are very well part of all these publications. A lot of us, top 50 every year who are published. So I basically wrote a concept and design for criminal correction centers. Those were the times when Tihad was under formulation, and there were a lot of concepts and ideas that I wanted to throw into. What basically the idea is that whatever is the current situation, you should always try to respond. You should always be very well updated with the current situations, try to find out a loop into it, and then try to figure out your way as an architect, and then try to write your thesis about it. And that would always make a lot of influence to you on your career, on your thesis, on people responding to you, the jury and everybody, because everybody wants solution for the people of country in a given present context, because there are certain redundant ideas that have always existed over a period of time, and most of the people just try to do and copy that, which does not let them evolve as an architect or a designer as a whole. After that, taking this forward, when I was so this was held in Visakhapatnam for top 50 architects in 2009. I'm talking about my graduation year. And after that, I took this further ahead, because I knew that I'm talking about realistic, innovative concepts that are going to work for the good of country. So I tried to contact Kiran Bedi, and eventually, gratefully, she gave me the appointment, and I was organized the meeting with Dr. BP Trivedi in BPRD, Ministry of Home Affairs, New Delhi, to take my thesis forward and talk about it. So you see, starting right at the academic level of trying to push for something which you firmly believe into can automatically find your way up. People say that there is nothing to do with education and your practical life. It is not the way. I mean, that is not true in most of the cases. If you're passionate enough for most of your workings, time and your hard work, patience, your perseverance, everything is going to obviously find a way. And that is what eventually happened with me, which led me to giving a presentation at Ministry of Home Affairs, and I was given a certificate of appreciation. I gave a presentation amidst a lot of government officials in BPRE New Delhi, thankfully, and that was headed by Dr. B.V. Trivedi at that point of time. Taking that further, I next after this, so by my final year, I was kind of sure that I would be wanting to do masters also. I was wanting to do masters because I want to gain knowledge out of it, because it's a hard proven fact that earlier you start afresh as an entrepreneur into any of your fraternities, in any of the design fields, you are bound to take a lot of time, because designing in general as a fraternity takes a lot of time for you to get established and then to put it on an autopilot mode, so that projects keep coming to you and then you start working towards it. But I was pretty sure about the fact that I wanted to gain knowledge, and that is why I want to pursue my masters in urban design, which a lot of people should be taking care of, because masters is not an escapade. It is not the idea to escape from your marriage or probably going on architectural tourism all around. You should be hungry for knowledge, and that's the only way in any kind of a profession. When we talk about the 5 professions in India, obviously, including doctor, lawyers, etc., that's the only way. Your calling is the only way which is going to find you a way always, and that should be heard first. So and after that I landed in Goa, and then to Manchester, wherein for all the works that I've been doing, and during my university days in Pune, I was also one of the good students, I would say, not citing the marks exactly, but then yes, I was applauded quite a few occasions, modestly if I say that, and well, on the basis of what it existed, I got Vice Chancellor Scholarship Award at University of Manchester. After that, I came back to India, and then the story that I told you before, and then I figured out that we do not have a hierarchy of working in India, in a lot of cities per se. So when I say I'm an urban designer, you will figure out in most of the cities there's no hierarchy. So there would be town planning department, there would be certain engineers, there would be certain architects or civil engineers, and that is how we end the chain, making the entire city. When the urban designing takes care of most of the aspects which relates to a small scale, which is larger than architecture scale, obviously, issues that people face in present day's world. And to mark my words and to make my place around for the same, I started working as a social activist, talking about urban designing issues and doing some pro bono volunteering, and I got published in a couple of newspapers also. This is 3 to 4 years back, a story for saving one of the lakes and a construction government issue that existed for the city, which is still under development, and a lot of other results to happen on that. I also practice pro bono work. When I say pro bono work means you have to extend yourself as a professional with your knowledge to people who are not in a position to possibly pay you, but you can obviously help them. So there are a lot of especially able societies or old age homes that we are working along with for any kind of input. Small and large does not matter. Extending yourself to the best limit and opportunity is the only thing that anybody should look at. When I say this, it is always important to understand that you are not a subject of comparison with anybody. So today, let's say when I talk about Laurie Baker or when I talk about any of the other architects with very flamboyant buildings, you obviously do not compare both of them. So that is how at individual level your competency as an architect is how better do you go from where you were to from where you were going, and not in sense of comparison always. Then as my pro bono work, I've also worked as a pro bono and no fees charged for Sainik Vishram Gad in Ambikapur, Chhattisgarh. There also I got certificates of gratitude and a lot of connections from Indian Army talking to me. Last year we were awarded Times Next Super 30 Startups 2019 for the wide portfolio, meaningful portfolio ranging from high-end malls to retail and interior, and Adobe for the needful, how exactly we're shaping up the dreams and not exactly the buildings. I was recently covered by a national daily newspaper for the role of architects as corona warriors post-pandemic, based on one of my articles that I had written, which has also become one of the which has become one of the subjects of one of the IGBC competitions for Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh recently, and I'm active IGBC participant as a convener and as a part of jury for quite a few activities for Indore chapter. So well, these were the major outlooks of my profile, and now if I talk about entrepreneurship and architecture, what you need to understand is, once you think that you want to become an architect and establish your own practice, do not look forward endlessly for waiting for gaining professional practice for years and years to come. When you think you are an entrepreneur, you have to think you are entrepreneur that very moment, and you have to start talking about trying to figure out how exactly you can figure out your clients to so we do not have a formal program for entrepreneurship in most of the institutes, but then entrepreneurship does not come with a book, because everybody has got a very varying timeline that you need to look into, which also does not mean that pursuing masters for anybody is not a good option, because pursuing masters can also be of a very good exposure to you, and exposure is what matters end of the day, because when you're delivering something to your client, your exposure helps you frame something good and better for the person who has come to you with a lot of aspirations about his life or anything that he wants to build, maybe a residence, maybe anything for that sake. You have to market your own self, you have to build trust in people, and whenever you think like you're falling back on something, you always need to come back to the 7 Lamps of Architecture. It's a very famous book written by John Ruskin, and that's always inspiration for me, at least, that has worked around. Your first project and your initial years are going to be very tough. Rome was not built in a day, obviously. You're getting your first project, and then that establishing, coming on the ground, and you're as good as your last project in most of the cases of designs, obviously, because then one design inspires 10 other people probably to collaborate with you or align themselves into your idea of working maybe. Money is very important as we are talking about all these things. A lot of people might have their own sense of understanding, and a lot of people would tell you that in your initial years, which was you should be working for free, which is not the case. You should never ever do that. Whoever tells you to work for free in your initial years, I'm talking to addressing to designers here, so it's a very good thing that you should always take care of. Talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and the architects as corona warriors, what we need to understand is that after this pandemic, there would be an increased digestible importance of green building, sustainability across all formats of living. When we are talking about the local water management, when I say local, I mean to say the site level management of the things itself. Or I'm talking about food and waste management, that you should be taking care of your own food at your own residence for the best possible. Small time farming, if that can be organized as a part of terrace farming, electric power, mechanical power, building automation. What is new that is going to exist as a part of planning in most of the in architecture everywhere almost, is going to be a sanitization and neutralization system. When I say this does not mean passing through a chemical tunnel all the time, because that is not, again, a very sustainable option, and it might just harm your skin in a longer run if if COVID-19 stays for a very long time. So a few additions that possibly a lot of planning could have is having mudroom at the entrance foyer, mudroom at the backyard. So mudroom are the areas where you first enter. You do not enter into the entrance foyer of the building, but you go via mudroom, which is the subordinate entrance foyer, which does not look bad and can be worked out into a lot of planning principles. Obviously, will not get exposed to your planning or try to mess up around with your aesthetics of working. Wherein you can change your clothes, get sanitize yourself with steam or taking a bath and change your clothes, and then enter through a secondary entrance inside. Then we are talking about convertible quarantine offices and spaces or outhouses, because if this again stays for a long time, you need to have spaces wherein you can home quarantine yourself without affecting the rest of the people. And the reason why I stress on having office spaces as convertible quarantine space is because offices are mandatory these days in most of the projects before even COVID-19 had hit. And that can be converted, and that lies on mostly the outside of the house. So it is not, you're essentially not taking the coronavirus inside, which can always keep you safe and your family safe from the impacts of virus. We're talking about UV machines, and when I talk about UV machines, it can be very well dealt with the sun rays also, because it has got UV rays type. So there's type A, type B rays and type C rays. You will have to look into it further ahead. I've got short time remaining. Medical dustbins and all these things. As an urban designer, if I talk about the situation, this is the best time that India was looking forward to, not because of the tragedy that has been happening, but because of the idea of de-urbanization. As an urban designer, we always wanted localized economy and working. It's a hard hit fact because of which people are traveling, but then this is again the best time wherein the future development can be shaped in one of the best possible ways. So de-urbanization was one thing that we wanted. We always wanted a low rise. We were always wanting to talk about just stop going vertically over top, because that definitely is not the idea of development. Tall buildings are not the idea of development. Sustainable and principles of new urbanism, as we talk about, are the principles which can help us develop a new world which is sustainable by nature. Going further, the immediate possible effects are the demand and supply that we see as an architect. So I do not think that nobody knows about how exactly the market is going to respond in terms of our fraternity and the clients, but then subjectively I think that commercial spaces might have lesser demand, obviously, because work from home becomes a trend, and so there are a lot of reusable and reconvertible projects I think that could be possibly lined up. Residential architecture is going to take up a lot of requirement and a lot of demand in the future to come, if I am trying to foresee the facts. And obviously the floor space is going to change. on a lot of things. India, if I tell you, is not only going through COVID-19 pandemic, we are going through the locust swarm, we are going through cyclone, we are going through labor migration. So the rest of the world is only suffering from COVID-19. India is suffering from a lot of other issues in depth which needs to be simultaneously addressed. So, and I'm more than sure we can do it. We are a country made with iron fist, and we can definitely do it. That's what the people of India are, obviously. In the last session now, to wrap up the time, I would talk about the controversy on Supreme Court ruling, which says that architecture does not require a formal. So architecture, to practice architecture, you can only be protected with the title protection and not with the service protection, which means that most of the people who are fake and wannabe, as I call them, who are wanting to practice architecture around, can obviously keep doing what they want. But then, on a very honest note, do you think that we really need a 5-year course? I'm not questioning the idea of COA or NIAS or anybody, but I'm just saying, when you think that architecture is your own calling, when architecture is your own calling, and if you can practice design, anybody can do it. Because there are a lot of proven people, designers and architects, who have shown that how exactly things can be done, because they've worked on researches, they're self-made. But COA and the mandatory rules, regulations, and a ruling for non-architects being not able to practice architecture is required, because tomorrow anybody will stand up and say, I am an architect, and because at large people already think that architecture and design is a subject of common sense. Architecture and design is not a subject of common sense, and this is the only fact that needs to be protected, and hence we definitely need to have something very strong coming up. Your importance is never getting lost, because knowledge always wins. And if knowledge always wins, so if a non-architect and an architect are sitting together, or if a client you're talking about certain things, and if he speaks in a layman language, somebody who's not educated will obviously not be able to speak or deliver a knowledge base that widely you can, which is the obvious non-common sense. And the number of people trying to call themselves architects, basically, who are not, in a legal sense of it, are just trying to prove that how important your profession is and how important that title is. Otherwise you could just say, I'm a building designer, which people do not say. They say, I am an architect, which shows that yes, there's something very special when you say that you're an architect. And that's the wannabe attitude, and we all know how to deal with wannabes. A lot of architects, which are the viewers, if I can see that. Last important thing, as I'm talking about how exactly we should go about our profession, architects generally land up talking to a lot of architects the way I am doing it right now. What you should try to concentrate upon is architects should be addressing a lot of layman, and not only the architects. You're trying to prove your design. We've got a lot of institutions who only talk architect to architect connect. So commercially you call it a B2C connect. So you need a business to consumer connect, basically. And that is where the architects should be looking into, because we are always into in the same pot, and we're talking about design. We are so enriched by our ideas and thoughts that we really want to discuss it out and be the best, but the best needs to go ahead. And that is what is required. So public platform presentations and speaking of architects is definitely the way forward that you need to look into if you want to save on to your profession. And nevertheless, knowledge at all costs will win. That's for now. Thank you.